pass me my coffee.
Right, can I have it in my bag?
So it's the week after County Cup. I had two pretty tough matches in my singles, a decent win and a great time with the Yorkshire team. But now I was back in Sheffield, ready to begin training hard again for my next competition, which was in 3 weeks. I don't currently have a sponsor or that much cash, so it means that I'm going to be hustling a little bit and training with not that many resources. But I've got some good training lined up, I've got some decent players to hit with, and most of all, I've got a lot of motivation for 2025. I feel like it's going to be a really important year, and I'm going to try and make the most of every opportunity that I get.
I mean, current situation.
I've got
That's-
emergency mittens as well.
That's how cold it is out here. Ella has resorted to the earmuffs and the coffee. Right.
I should have brought a
Should we get
scarf.
on with it?
Yes.
We're doing walking lunges all the way around the court.
That's horrible.
I know I mentioned that I don't have a lot of resources, but I honestly don't really feel like I need them. The things that I need to work on don't require a high-tech gym or any
How the
fancy
legs
equipment.
feeling?
My movement needs to be better. I need to be quicker around the court, fitter, more efficient, and get a little bit lighter. And then everything else I can work on the tennis court. I feel like the two things that have let me down the most in the last 3 matches that I've played have been the amount of unforced errors that I've hit and how far behind the baseline I'm staying during the point. So in my practices, I'm trying to keep it really simple. I'm just trying to not miss in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the warm-up, try and get in really good habits, focus as much as I can, especially on things like height over the net. It's such an easy error to cut out, and I really feel like you can train yourself to not give away these cheap errors. It just takes a bit of conscious effort. So at the start of every session, I'm trying not to hit the ball in the net. And then the second thing was my court position. So I felt in my matches that I was dropping quite far back behind the baseline. So I was just trying to stay on the baseline as much as I could and move up to any short balls, even when we were just rallying. I'm just trying to get myself back into really good habits before competing again. And it doesn't really matter who I'm hitting with. I can do this practicing with pretty much anyone. So, after training, I do a little bit of work in the shop, at the club, stringing a few rackets, just trying to keep myself going with a bit of money, helps to pay for food, a bit of nutrition, and the coffees, of course. So I normally smash out 2 or 3 rackets and then maybe string 1 or 2 of my own. Obviously want to save myself some cash as well at the same time. I'm just very lucky that they have such a good machine in the shop. I'd say that it normally takes me about just under half an hour to string a racket. I'm not really quick and I try and do it carefully and obviously do the best job that I can.
Right, we are done with tennis for the day. How are you feeling, Ella?
My body's so sore now.
How was your 10k?
Hard.
Can't really
but
see because it's so dark.
rewarding.
Oh, well, yeah,
Very rewarding. I've not done
Okay.
one for a year, but I cannot
Yeah.
move now.
Well, you can still speak, so so what are we doing now? I've done about 2 hours of training and strung a few rackets, a bit of work, and now it is time for a little bit more physical training. So we've decided before we do any of the physical work, we are going to have a coffee. Bosh.
This is stupid.
Ella's prep for helping me do my physical work. Look at that.
But I feel like one of the best exercises for speed and probably endurance as well, and it's really low impact, are hill sprints. Yeah, I mean, you probably don't really get a gauge of how steep the hill is, but I'll tell you, it's it's steep. I mean, Ella's car struggles to get up there, so. Right, you ready? So I did about 6 or 7 of those, which I think, how long would you say they are? About 50, 100 meters?
Oh, I have no idea. It's a big hill.
Maybe like 60 meters, maybe.
Yeah.
So I've done about 6 or 7 of those, and now I'm gonna go. I think it's about a 2-mile run. I was gonna do a bit of shopping as well while we're at it. Oh, that was pretty tough actually. But we're here in Tesco, and Ella is busy shopping, keeping me fueled up. Here we go. We've had to have a pit stop on the sweet aisle because Ella's in the middle of an EPB. She needs some sugar ASAP. Don't faint. She fainted last week at David Lloyd. In the sauna.
Thanks for outing me there.
Right, come on. Make your selection. It's not that hard. What are you making for us?
I'm doing taco mince with rice.
Wow. Nutritious.
It is.
Looks good on the camera. Hope I didn't leave anything in my pockets when I did the washing.
Yeah.
Probably did. Always do.
Ugh.
Ooh, the guac. Look at that. Whoosh.
Looks nuked. Radioactive
Whoosh.
guac. But I couldn't be bothered to make my own.
Radio guactive. Ha 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 ha. Ho ho ho. Terrible joke.
Terrible joke.
A rather large ball of cheese just falling out in that bowl there. That was a pretty banging dinner, to be fair. Oh, feet for free.
Oh, you're not putting that in.
Greek yogurt, dark chocolate, tea, berries. Ella. What? There's some candid video of me looking out the shops.
Really?
The views of Sheffield. So me and Ella were up pretty early and we were travelling to Leeds. A very good friend of mine had invited me for a good 3-hour session. I find travelling really relaxing, especially with Ella. I think this was probably the point in the conversation where she got onto a ring and a wedding. So 9:30 a.m. After an hour and a half of travelling, need to loosen off a little bit, get a really good warm up in, especially since we were going to be doing one long session for 3 hours. So the guy that I'm practicing with, his name is Finn Murgett. He was in the American college tennis system for over 4 years. And in that time, he got to the top 50 in the NCAA for singles and top 5 in the doubles. And he has a UTR of 13.6. Now, if anybody doesn't know what that means, it means he's good. And he has quite an interesting game style, which is pretty difficult to play against, so it's perfect to train with. He normally takes his backhand very early and finds it really easy to maneuver the ball off that wing. and I'd say on average he hits the backhand quite flat. On the forehand side, he can take the ball equally early, but hits with a very heavy, aggressive shape, which on those slow, outdoor American hard courts, I can imagine it was a nightmare to deal with. And I'd say on average, players with a two-handed backhand don't slice particularly well. I know that there are exceptions. And against two-handed players, I like to drop the ball low and see if they can pick it up. But he actually has great hands as well, and he has a great slice. So it's very hard to pick holes in his game. I'd say he's one of the few players where I find myself changing what I'm doing in order to counteract what he's doing. It doesn't happen very often. I like to stick to my own plan. But because he plays with so much variety and he's smart, he changes the game quick, I feel like I have to be really on it. Recently, I've been training with him a lot and I really enjoy these sessions. It's a really good mix of a lot of physical work, mixed in with a lot of different tactical situations, and it's all very competitive because after each drill we play for a forfeit. And as it's pre-season, we can pretty much go as hard as we like. So the forfeits are often things like sprints in a certain amount of time, press-ups, lunges, anything really that is physical and very difficult after a long drill. So we normally spend about 10 minutes warming up, a little bit up and down the middle, cross courts, all the general sort of stuff, and then we like to get straight into the practice. I'll admit that Finn has taught me the difference between training and hitting. And although time on court is good, and hitting balls is always good, it's fun, really enjoy getting in a rhythm, if you're not working on something specific, then I wouldn't call it training. So, the first drill is one of my favourites. We've been doing this for quite a while now in training. It's the anchor drill. Very simple. One player in a corner, playing half court, versus the other player who's having to cover the full court. And the idea is to try and build as much discipline as possible by not going for too much, working for depth, and keeping it very physical. The idea of the anchored player isn't really to hit loads of winners. It's more to work the point in a way where it's very realistic for a match, which I'll admit at the beginning I didn't really get the idea of that, and I was just trying to spray some winners. But I realised halfway through to get a real benefit of this drill, just to try and work the player who is having to cover the full court and try and keep the tempo very match realistic, just so that when you get into a match, there's not a huge difference in your level. And you'll almost be able to use this drill as a base for your game so that you never really dip below a certain level. So the way we normally do it is we take it in turns to be in the corners and be the person who's having to cover the full court. And then we basically play to 7 on each side. And then whoever has the least amount of points in total has to do a forfeit. So it's just a really good way of keeping the training very physical, very competitive. And I often find forfeits are a really good way of replicating match pressure, because in matches you can often find yourself thinking, oh, if I lose this point, I'm getting broken, and then this happens. Whereas it could so happen in this drill that if you lose a certain amount of points, then you have to do the forfeit. So I know it's not the same as match pressure, but at least it's something to have in the background that helps you to put your focus back into the tennis. And I'll be honest, Finn was a bit of a nightmare to play from the backhand corner. Just Clement Chidecking me around. And it just really shows you the power of taking time away. Finn's holding his position really tight close to the baseline, and the ball's often coming back to me before I've even recovered. So I was always kind of hitting the ball slightly off balance. That's why I actually really like training with Finn, just because he does play in a way that really challenges you in quite a few different ways. And this is what I mean about this drill getting really physical. I don't even know how many shots this was, but it was a lot. And this is why it's such a good drill just for building fitness and discipline. I remember at this moment my legs were burning quite a lot. I'd had quite a few long rallies on this side, but I was trying so hard just to get as many points as I could so that I didn't have to do those sprints. So, after that lung-busting rally, I was pretty toast. And after losing that round, it was my turn to move Finn. My goal on the backhand side was just to use my forehand as much as I could, to shape the ball around, move him, and try and take it early. The goal is not to make errors. And if I lost this drill, I knew that I was getting a forfeit. And what made it tougher was I was just covering the full court and we had some pretty brutal long rallies, so I was starting to feel it in my legs. But that's the challenge, trying to keep the quality up even when you're getting tired. And I remember thinking this is just perfect prep for me getting into a really physical match, a long match, and just trying to sustain my quality. So, after losing the anchor drill, it was my turn to do some sprints. What we normally do is 3 lengths of the court there and back in under 15 seconds, which is actually pretty tough for me because I've got the turning circle of a bus at the minute. But I'm getting better at them each time I do them. Then after the sprints, we were straight into the next drill, which is the slice to slice drill. Another simple drill, but an extremely effective one. Using the slice to stay disciplined in the cross, and then as soon as someone hits a forehand, the point is live. So again, loser of this drill gets a forfeit. I feel like because I'm a single-hander, I'm naturally pretty good at this drill. I quite like to use some patterns on the slice during matches, including pushing one deep, then dropping one short, and then waiting for my opponent to pop a ball up a little bit higher so I can have a bit more time to move around and take on a forehand. But as I mentioned earlier, Finn also does have a great slice and a great inside-out forehand. So it was actually really tricky to break him down during this drill. After battling it out in the slice cross, we decided to mix it up and go straight into some serving. It's very easy in training to just get drawn into drills off the ground because they make you feel really good. I don't feel like a lot of players really love serving, but it's important. So we did whatever this is, decided who was going to go first, and then got into it. So, as always, keeping it very competitive. The loser gets a sprint. It was how many serves can you make in the target, which was down the tee on the juice side, with 10 serves. I feel this drill was more geared to me. I feel like naturally my first serve is one of my strengths. Don't get me wrong, Finn has a great serve too, but I was feeling pretty confident with this one. So you may know that recently I switched rackets. I'm now using the Head Extreme Pro. I'd just like to say a big thank you to All Things Tennis for supplying me with them. It was very strange actually. Originally I didn't like serving with this racket. Off the ground it felt fantastic, but it's taken me a little bit of time to adjust, and now I'm really starting to get the benefits on my first serve. And it's actually really improved my second serve as well. I'm starting to get a lot more kick, which was difficult with the pro staff. It was quite heavy, difficult to maneuver, and very little margin for error. But anyway, back to the training. So, I was ahead on the juice side, now it was time for tee on the ad. I'd say that this is probably my best serve.
This is going. I've got no more cells.
So, I just edged Finn on the ad side, and that pretty much concluded our serving for the session, as Finn's coach was coming on to help us with some volley stuff. As you can see, this drill is pretty self-explanatory. Tough feed in, first volley, play. I guess my goal here was trying to make Finn's life at the net as difficult as possible, trying to make him play as many balls, which is tough because he's got pretty good hands and he's very good at disguising what he's doing. And he also closes the net very quickly. I guess the goal with volleying is to try and contact the ball above the height of the net whenever possible, and not make contact with the net. My turn next. I think at this point we pretty much gave up on the forfeits and just started doing sprints after every drill. Just getting as physical as possible. And after each sprint, it was just straight back in for more. Each time we changed the drill slightly. So this one was the player starts on the service line, sprints backwards, then sprints forwards, and takes on a first volley. So a little bit more physical, a little bit more difficult, but that's the only way you get better. That's a pretty ridiculous volley. Normally, I'm not actually a fan of these sorts of drills, but I guess because we were just doing them so much, I actually started to enjoy them, and I actually felt my volleys start to really improve. Ella clearly found this one funny. Completing another drill meant another set of sprints. Recently I've invested in a Whoop just to help me track my fitness a little bit better, sleep, recovery, and I think at this point in the session it said I'd burnt around 1,600 calories, and that was for about 2.5 hours. So it was pretty intense. We decided to finish off the session with a bit of 2-on-1. The guys at the baseline couldn't hit winners, but still made things very tricky for me by bringing out some lobs, some little dinks, and especially after all the physical work, this sort of drill really tests you. So, that was the session done for the day. Normally after these types of sessions, we go for a big stretch, even go on some of the recovery machines. There's a pretty cool water massage one. And then we usually head to the cafe, get a bit of lunch, and definitely a coffee. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.